Mr. Dennis Archer Jr. to this special author talk this evening. Oh, yeah. A little bit about both of them before we begin. Secretary Benson ascended into the national spotlight during the 2020 election cycle as one of the women from Michigan. This was a group who successfully stymied Donald Trump's failed attempts to overturn the valid and accurate results of Michigan's 2020 presidential election results. The secretary was subsequently featured on the cover of Time magazine and was honored with both the JFK Profile of Courage Award and the Presidential Citizens Medal. In January of this year, the secretary announced her candidacy for governor of our state in 2026. Please visit jocelynbenson.com for more information. We also welcome Dennis Archer Jr. Mr. Archer is the chairman and chief executive of 1642 Ventures, the parent company of several operating companies and strategic investments, including the Archer Corporate Services, Ignatian Media Group, and the Vinyl Society Lounge. Mr. Archer sits on Detroit's Regional Chamber Executive Commission and is its chair of the Racial Justice and Economic Equality Committee. Tonight, they will be discussing the Secretary's new book, The Purposeful Warrior. The book is a roadmap for shattering the status quo and standing up for ourselves, our communities, and our country. Secretary Benson shares powerful stories from her rise in politics, investigating domestic terrorist cells, becoming the youngest woman in U.S. history to lead a top 100 law school. Yes. As well as running the Boston Marathon while 8 months pregnant. Even bigger. We couldn't be more pleased to welcome them both for this really excellent, dynamic, and engaging author talk. Thank you both so much for coming.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
So the first thing that I would ask is when you do your next book, if you want me to do this, let me go before Morning Joe and before all the national TV shows. It's a lot of pressure following me. But I appreciate the opportunity. And let me say thank you to the library. Our family in particular has a relationship with the library. My dad is saying he can't hear me. Oh, my mic's not working. Technician? I'll talk louder for a second until we can get it fixed. Is yours work?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
All right, there we go. Anyway, I was saying that my father's exhibit here from his time as mayor is housed here. And so we've had an ongoing relationship with the library. Let me also just say that you are my first. And what I mean by that is I've probably got 15 audiobooks open in different various stages, and this is the first one I've actually listened to through completion. And so Jocelyn was kind enough, she sent me a book in preparation for this, and we were texting back and forth, and she said, you know, have you gotten the book? And I said, no, I don't have a book. And I was leaving out of town and had a couple long flights, so like at 10 o'clock at night, my doorbell rings, and it's like a little elf. And she leaves it on the front porch and sneaks away, so thank you. But I did download the audiobook, and I thought it was fantastic. And I will tell you, we have so much to cover because the book is amazing. And I think there's so much about your life that people don't know unless they've read the book. How many people have read the book thus far? So those of you know about it, those of you who have not, you're in for a treat. Let me just say, first of all, a little bit about the logistics of the book. first of all, you had Amanda Seyfried do your forward, and big fan of her, she's amazing. And you're on Maria Shriver's imprint. And so this imprint is focused only on authors that are writing about significant things that are meant to make a difference. Talk a little bit how you chose Amanda to do your forward, and how you chose Maria Shriver's imprint with Penguin to be your publisher.
I love that. Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, I'm honored that we have 3 generations of Archers here tonight. Of course, Mayor Archer, Dennis Archer Sr., the great moderator, Dennis Archer Jr., and Dennis Archer III. Where'd he go? There he is, Look at that. 3 generations of leadership, service. So much of your family represents all that is great about the city. So thank you. It's an honor to be having this conversation with you tonight, and to see 3 generations here, to hear what we have to say. And similarly, I was really honored that Maria Shriver wanted to publish this book. Essentially what happened is, after the 2020 election, I wanted to tell the story of what it was like standing up to a president to protect the results of a free and fair election. And it was harrowing, it was challenging. And as I started writing the story, I realized that what enabled me to stand up to the leader of the free world when he was trying to undo our elections in that moment it wasn't like I woke up one day and was ready to go. It was actually a series of decisions throughout my life that had enabled me to do what I needed to do in that moment. And in the months that followed, obviously, there was a lot more to tell. And so as I started writing this book, I didn't know where I was going to end up. It ultimately evolved into a call to action for all of us, especially in this moment. Now, I finished writing the book over a year ago. That said, it takes about a year to go through the publishing process, but it became a call to action for us all to be warriors with intention, with focus, with purpose, in moments of great challenge and great tumult, as we arguably now are in. And so, knowing that, a friend of mine had 2 friends of mine who were mutual friends with Maria were having brunch one day, and they were talking, and they called me and said, we feel like you should meet Maria Shriver. We feel like you guys have a lot in common. And I was like, oh, I wouldn't, no, there we go. And I had been familiar with this imprint, The Open Field, that she launched about a year earlier, and said, I'm writing a book, and I actually would love to meet her because I feel like this book is a perfect fit for her imprint, which is all about publishing books that tell untold stories to encourage and inspire others to be their best selves, to be their own warriors, to rise above the noise and seek a better world. And so they said, great, we'll introduce you over email. And they did, and she wrote back right away, which was incredible to me. And then I said, hey, I'm going to be in Los Angeles, coincidentally speaking at this gathering of Secretaries of State next week. Are you happen to be available for coffee? And she wrote back and said, let me move my schedule around and make it work. And then I thought, I was sure she was going to cancel, so I didn't tell anyone that it was happening. And but lo and behold, at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, she showed up at this coffee shop, and she and I sat down, just her and I, for a good couple of hours. And just really, she was an incredible person, asked me so many questions. We talked about the book, and I told her my idea of the Purposeful Warrior, and she said, great, let's do it. And I sent her an outline, sent a proposal. She connected me with her book agents as well, and we made it all happen. And so it was a really serendipitous story, but really underscores the incredible person that she is. Former First Lady of California. She didn't have to meet me for coffee, but she did, and she was not only willing to help me publish the book and publish it under her imprint, but also, there you go, but also, in addition to that, mentor me throughout the process as I went along to try to figure out how to write this, not for Democrats who wanted to learn about how bad Donald Trump was. I wanted this book to be for everyone, no matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican or independent or anywhere in between, whether you're political or not. We all have a role to play in standing up for ourselves, our loved ones, and the communities that we call home. And what I really wanted this to be was a message for everyone that whether it's fighting against a toxic workplace or for a better family and community wherever you live, we all can stand up and speak out to further our vision for a better world. And that can be political or not, it can be partisan or not, but it doesn't have to be. And she really helped me speak to a broader audience. Now Amanda is just a longtime friend for years. She married a friend of mine probably about 10 years ago now, and has been a dear friend. And similarly, what I love about her introduction, her foreword, it brings tears to my eyes, and if you have the audio version, you can hear her read it herself, is that she similarly talks about how, as an actress, she's always sort of saying what other people wanted her to say. And that she was starting to find her own voice, and that books like this and stories like this could help anyone, no matter what profession you're in, what world you find yourself in, what country you find yourself in, find your voice and figure out how to connect your voice, your passion, your unique contribution to this world to making a difference and improving other people's lives. And so it was, I'm honored that she would write the foreword and do it in such a personal, vulnerable way. It's really beautiful, and you can hear her read it in her own words on the audiobook.
We gotta share a mic.
Okay.
So talking about the title resonated with me immediately, again, given the times that we find ourselves in. And even more when you talk about standing up for what's right when the stakes are high. I personally feel that not enough in this political bullying environment, those are my words, not hers, that I don't see enough people of influence in the business community. I mean, you obviously see the talking heads on the news shows, and you see some of the organization leadership, like Reverend Sharpton and Reverend Anthony, and that's kind of their shtick. But people that are of influence that perhaps could help drive the conversation back center, I don't see them stepping up. And I think in large part, the environment has been set such that people are afraid of the blowback, the bullying that will follow. Are you gonna all of a sudden have an IRS audit because you said something in opposition of the administration? So a purposeful warrior at this time has a tremendous amount of meaning. The stakes are high, and people, I feel, when you look back in time, there are people that have stood up for what's right and against what's wrong. And I will just be interested to look back at this time, who will be those who have stood up? Who will be the purposeful warriors during this time in our political history? And so I just would be interested, because the title, you came up with it before all of this foolishness started. Talk about what led you to the title and the subtitle.
Yeah, I mean, this foolishness, let's get real, it started a while ago. It's escalated, certainly over the last 100 days. But the need for us to be warriors, I think, is really not just even permeated over since 2016, it's permeated throughout history. The first part of my book opens with our armed protesters outside my home and what it was like to huddle inside with my son, my then 4-year-old son, as the fear engulfed us of what could happen. But at the same time, in that same moment, I connected with this sense of this is what it means to fight for democracy. This is what it means to stand for democracy, to actually put yourself on the line, I thought, to the folks who stood at the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama in 1965. Warriors as well, in a critical moment for our country's history. I think there's a through line throughout our democracy since its inception of those consistently fighting to make it better, to expand access to the vote and the power that comes with it. So for me, in this moment, what it means to be a purposeful warrior is to recognize that no matter what challenges we find ourselves in, whether it be in the challenges that engulfed our nation in the 1960s, the 1970s, even into today, we all have a voice, we all have a contribution to make, we all have a responsibility to stand wherever that bridge is for us. Maybe it's outside our child's classroom, fighting to make sure they have access to quality education opportunities. Maybe it's in our workplace, standing up to toxic coworkers or bosses that may feel, that may try to oppress us. It could be anywhere that you feel your voice needs to be heard. And what this book talks about in a very unflinching way is that comes with consequences. It always has. I mean, John Lewis didn't just walk to Montgomery. He was beaten along the way by state troopers, Alabama state troopers. On the other side of it, because he went through that, we have a Voting Rights Act today that enshrines in our democracy that right to vote for all. But everything worth fighting for oftentimes does require us to endure challenges. And the other part of my book, though, talks about how those challenges, like the folks outside my house that came to try to overturn election results, those challenges are also moments for us to find strength and actually grow stronger as a result. So if we start to see challenges or threats, not necessarily as something to only be fearful of, because they do invoke fear. More, that's whether it's an IRS audit or standing at the foot of a bridge marching with Alabama state troopers. It can be invoke fear, but the idea is to march through it anyway, and to walk through the fire and get on the other side and realize, oh, I'm so much stronger than I was before. And now I can take on even more battles in furtherance of what I believe in. So you start to see challenges as really just a pathway to strength. And if you can really do that, if you can really see them as an opportunity to get better at yourself, your community, whatever you're fighting for, your purpose, then you start to be less and less afraid of those challenges, and even start to see them again as something you would even welcome, because you know on the other side of it, you're going to be so much better than you were before.
So one of the things that I would say that I have witnessed personally is the vast improvement in the service levels of the Secretary of State's offices. And so I may not have the stats exactly right, but I think it's 131 offices around the state.
Yeah.
And that at one point, when you started, you were even shocked that 75% of your customers were coming in and 25% were online, and that you wanted to flip that. And, that leads me to, the title of one of your chapters is, "It Ain't Broke, but Fix It Anyway." And that's an interesting concept. Well, first of all, I think that we all probably thought that's just how Secretary of State offices work. It was so bad for so long that we just assumed it was always going to be that way, and we planned on going every 3 hours. But that was not your approach. So, and I think that, I forget, was it the NFL commissioner that first introduced that to you, or you introduced that to him? But it ain't broke, fix it anyway. Talk to us about that.
So I worked with Paul Tagliabue, the former commissioner of the NFL for a number of years. He actually writes in support of the book on the back cover as well. He's become a great friend, and an entire chapter is called "If It Ain't Broke, Fix It Anyway," which was an adage that he would consistently remind me of when we worked together to lead a nonprofit. And at the same time was something that he really leveraged when he ran the NFL. So I tell stories about that from his vantage point that he shared with me from the NFL. And also apply that to my approach to that Secretary of State office. Everyone always says, what does the Secretary of State do? You know me as the Chief Election Officer. I'm also the Chief Motor Vehicle Officer, so that makes me super popular. Everyone loves to go to the DMV, right? Especially days like today, where the Real ID requirement is going into effect. If you haven't gotten your Real ID yet, you do have to get that in order to travel as of today. But that said, what I did when I took office was, I believe, one, no one was clamoring for us to fix those offices. They sort of were like, that's the way it's always been, right? It's the butt of all the jokes, the DMV, and you just have to wait in line, and there's nothing that can be done about it. And I have spent my career taking things that seem unfixable and actually making them work well. And so for me, though I very much, those of you who have known me for a while know that running for Secretary of State, at the heart of it was running to help improve our democracy. The bonus was that I also got to help show that government can actually be something that you're not dreading to interact with. It can actually be something that makes your life easier. It can save you time. It can save you money. And I wanted to prove that concept, and lo and behold, I got to do so as the chief motor vehicle officer for all of these transactions. 75%, you got the numbers exactly right, 75% of which at the time I took office were happening in our branches, and only 25% were online. So I actually sat down with Patty Poppy, who at the time was head of Consumers Energy, and I said, look, you're at the forefront of researching a lot of ways to better improve how we deliver services to a large amount of people. What have you found? And she said, you've got to flip the ratio. You've got to put 75% of your services online and 25% in person. And if you do that, you'll see your capacity start to meet the demand and eliminate those wait times. We did a lot of other things as well, but that was one of the core things we did. Put more services online. We actually put working kiosks in grocery stores so that if you go to a Meijer or a Kroger, you can do your business with the state right there without even having to go to a branch. We launched 7 mobile offices around the state that meet people where they are and show up at senior centers and homeless shelters and libraries, festivals where people might need access to these resources and can get them without going to a branch. When we did all of that, we significantly decreased foot traffic into those branch offices so that now you can get in and out in 20 minutes or less, no matter where you go. We also supported, and this is one of the things that a lot of folks don't know, when I took office, I visited every single one of these offices, I talked to our employees, and I learned that a lot of them were part-time or seasonal to save money. And I'm all for saving money and efficient services and cutting red tape and cutting wasteful spending. But doing it on the backs of the working men and women of the state of Michigan, these folks who show up every day and don't make a lot of money to serve the people, that's not the way to do it. So we transitioned all of those jobs into full-time jobs with healthcare. And lo and behold, there was less turnover and a happier workplace, right? Which to the extent that costs more money, you know what we did? We significantly drove down our other expenses in overtime, which we no longer had to pay because people were out at 5 o'clock because there were no more wait time. So we also eliminated a whole lot of contracts that were just wasted consultants that were not telling us anything that we didn't already know and were hundreds of thousands of dollars wasted. So my point is that no one was clamoring for us to fix the DMV, but we were able to do it. I didn't need a chainsaw to do it. I didn't need to fire people. I could actually make people's lives more holistic and pay them better to the extent that the state civil service enables us to make those changes. And all of that to great results for the customers, the people of the state that we serve. And so it's a lesson, and there's other lessons in this chapter, but even if it doesn't seem broke, even if no one's demanding you fix something, you probably can make it better. And it's good to be able to do that, whether you're running the National Football League or running the DMV. And, there's other stories in the chapter from folks who left careers to start a new business and how challenging and scary that can be. Their career wasn't broken, but they chose to fix it anyway, and you see sometimes greater success than you ever might have anticipated going into it. And that's really why I think Paul Tagliabue was such a success, because that's how he approached everything he did.
Yeah, you're touching about people's careers and how providing them a better workplace environment. That's part of it. I think you stress the importance of having what you refer to as a board of directors. Have people around you, some 15 years old or some 15 years younger, to help guide you. Talk about, because in my opinion, no matter what you do, whether you're an elected official, a school teacher, a business person, having that sort of unit around you to help guide you so you're not doing it on your own is important. Talk about what you find important about having a personal board of directors.
Yeah, I think 2 things. One, having a tribe around you, just like an organization or nonprofit has a board of directors to help you stay focused, enables you to find strength in solidarity, where so much of fighting for a purpose, some person, can make you feel very alone, very isolated, like you're in this all alone. Having a tribe around you to lift you up, to help support you, and to call you out when you need to get back on track, that can actually help you feel not alone and be stronger as a result. Secondly, having a board of directors helps you be better, helps you see things you may not see, helps you address vulnerabilities that may be invisible to you. And then third, so much in life conspires to take us off course. Unexpected losses, wind in our face, right? Challenges or tragedies that we never saw coming. That's inevitable. We all know that. Every single one of us could probably list 17 things that happened this year that we didn't anticipate when January hit. So those unexpected realities all can conspire to distract us from the path we're supposed to be on. What your board of directors can do is help you stay focused. And that's ultimately what purpose is. It's a focus, it's an intention, and then it's an intention with an impact. That's what being a warrior for that purpose is, fighting for that impact. Your board of directors can also help you assess whether you're actually having your impact. Because whatever you're fighting for, we don't want to just spin our wheels and not move anywhere. We want to get stuff done, right? We actually want to know that we made something better because we fought for it. And so all of that is made easier when you have a tribe around you who can represent you in different parts of your life and call you out when you need it, and overall help you be much more effective and resilient as a purposeful warrior for whatever cause you fight for.
Thank you. You talk just now a little bit about vulnerability and personal loss. It's interesting to read someone's written word, but then to hear them talk about it, because there's some things that you were talking about where I was getting emotional, and you seem to be very steady. So I don't know if you had to do like 4 takes or not when you were reading. But I mean, you experienced, a significant personal loss, which you articulated thoroughly in the book. But you talked about how being vulnerable to talk about it and then being open to support helped you there. And so a lot of us will experience difficulties and will want to hold it in and not share and not be open to people's assistance. So talk about the importance of being vulnerable and then also being open to assistance from others.
I mean, vulnerability is a strength, right? It's hard, but the more that we practice that muscle, the stronger we become, the more effective we become, the more connected to others we become. A lot of stories in this book I haven't told before about being in a toxic workplace, about having a miscarriage, losing a child, all these things that people were very surprised to learn about me. But at the same time, I shared them because it was so important for me to make sure others knew if they dealt with that same loss or tragedy, they're not alone. And if we can see each other and we can see each other's pain and struggle and loss, it actually empowers us to be even more effective at fighting to make things better. And so if nothing else, the strength that can come through community, through solidarity, so much of this current moment is designed to make us feel alone, divided against each other. But there's so much more that connects us than what takes us apart. That's really true. And stories like these, our vulnerabilities, can connect us to each other, oftentimes far more than any policy positions can. And so for me, you can't talk about the importance of vulnerability without being willing to be vulnerable yourself, right? And so that's sort of part of the reason for putting these stories in this book and sharing them with the world. But it's also my biggest hope in sharing them is that it helps someone else feel that they're not alone in their own struggles, and that they can similarly find strength and solidarity in being seen and seeing others as well.
Thank you. Your time in Alabama, your time with Dan and Keith, throughout the book, and that we know each other personally, I happen to know that you have an affinity for and study the civil rights movement. So there's what I would describe as spiritual almost connection with you and the movement. But you also talk about uncomfortable bravery. And talk about that connection, uncomfortable bravery, and the movement, and how, what do you mean by that, and how has the previous movements inspired that thought?
I think a lot of life can be said to try to make you chase comfort, right? That comfort is something that we should aspire to, and yes, absolutely, comfort is a good thing to have, right? Those moments of comfort, of serenity, of peace, certainly we need to have those as part of our life. At the same time, there's a lot that discomfort can teach us as well. And to find a balance where you're also recognizing that sometimes fighting for something you believe in, being true to yourself, speaking up, speaking out, and particularly to highlight an injustice that otherwise would go unnoticed. All of that requires us to be willing to be uncomfortable, to get uncomfortable. To me, some of the greatest, most beautiful parts of our story, our country's history, is when citizens were willing to get uncomfortable in order to seek a better world. And that is the essence of the civil rights movement. I moved to Alabama after college because I was so amazed that unknown, quietly, for months, I think almost a year, men and women in Montgomery, Alabama walked to work simply because they believed in fighting and eradicating the injustice of segregation in public transportation. They didn't have news cameras on them every day. There was no social media tracking them at every moment. But they took one step in solidarity with each other, walked to work. It was painful. It was uncomfortable at the very least, right? And that's just one of so many stories of bravery of that time, without which we would not have the civil rights protections we have today. The legal cases were not enough. Brown v. Board was not enough. It took 10 years after that to truly, and it's still, right, we're still working to integrate our schools and desegregate public education. And so all that to say is, as I look at my heroes throughout history, they're all filled with stories of great achievement combined with great discomfort along the way. And so I talk about that as saying, well, that's our lesson. We have to be willing to be uncomfortable, whether it's having uncomfortable conversations to make our relationships better, or putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations to seek a better world and to seek justice. That is an adage that I think is true time and time again. You can match it with moments of comfort and love and balancing with that. But we have to not be afraid of being uncomfortable if we truly want to achieve our purpose as warriors.
You know, along with being uncomfortable and leveraging it, you also talk about finding purpose in your rage. Why do you feel that contributes positively to being a purposeful warrior?
So that came from Michelle Obama, who I think on Stephen Colbert several years ago said, it's not okay to just be rageful, you have to find purpose in your rage. And as I think she said this as I was writing the book, and it really struck me, because it really aligns with this idea of being a purposeful warrior. It's not just, rage is a powerful emotion. As I say in the book, in some ways it's more powerful than any other emotion, perhaps even love. And so the power of taking that fire of rage and anger and then channeling it with a focus towards a purpose, towards furthering your mission, that can be one of the most powerful ways that we move the needle and achieve our goals. And so the need to find purpose in rage is a way to sort of funnel that rage, to not stifle it, to not say this is wrong, to be angry. Anger it can be a good thing. And if you channel it towards making yourself stronger, making yourself better, making yourself more adept at fighting for what you believe in, you can achieve, again, perhaps greater things than you would have without that rage. The stories I tell associated with this adage in the book are about actually being in a military family. My husband, out of his rage and anger over 9/11, and losing people he cared about in the towers, Michiganders who he grew up with, he channeled that rage into joining the military, into enlisting and being a combat soldier on the front lines in Afghanistan. Not to, again, levy that rage against in a fight and trying to harm others, but actually his goal was to bring as many of his fellow soldiers back alive as he could. He became a medic, a combat medic, and his job was to keep people alive, keep American soldiers alive. And so it was a way for him to take this rage he was feeling and channel it in a productive way. And then I also talk about what that was like for me as the military spouse here in Michigan as he was deployed, and how easy it would have been to be rageful because my husband was gone fighting the war. I never knew if I was going to get that phone call that he would be, hurt on the battlefield or worse. But at the same time, through connecting with other military spouses, I channeled that rage into an incredibly productive result, which was creating the Military Spouses of Michigan, which was one of the most beneficial communities that we were able to build for each other during that challenging time. So rage can be a path towards incredible productivity and results. And it's about figuring out how to feel those emotions and then channel it towards productivity. It can enable us to do more than we ever thought possible.
Just as an FYI, we're probably going to talk about 10 more minutes, then Jocelyn is going to take questions from the audience. And so I will probably relent my microphone to whoever in the audience wants to come up and ask questions. But, a couple standout moments in the book that just speak to me about your resilience and stick-to-itiveness One is when you were trying really hard to not accept that job in New York to go run the nonprofit, but ultimately you just realized that it's probably the right thing to do, and you can do a lot of good for a lot of people, and you did do that. But the second was a marathon, and they mentioned the marathon. So Jocelyn run 30+ marathons. It's incredible, but the most incredible one that you're probably most famous for running is Jocelyn was 8 months pregnant and was getting on the phone to call the marathon folks to say, hey, I'm tapping out, I can't do it, I'm 8 months pregnant. And her husband bought her a book called The Pregnant Athlete, The Pregnant Athlete, and read the book and encouraged her, and ultimately got a bike and rode alongside her for 26.2 miles. And you talk about running the race, and you kind of got halfway, and you're like, oh, I'm halfway, and then you got to some signature sign or something, you're like, oh, it's almost done, and the next thing you know, you ran 26.2 miles at 8 months pregnant.
Yeah.
Incredible.
It to me was a lesson, and that's why I love running marathons, because it's a way for me to just myself, my own path, remind myself that we can all do so much more than we actually believe we are capable of. All of us, every single one of you can do so much more than you may think you can be capable of. And I'm reminded of that myself every time I start a race, whether I'm 8 months pregnant or not. I just ran the London Marathon a few weeks ago. And at the beginning of that race, every race, I've never started a marathon certain that I was gonna finish it, ever. One, because so many variables can happen along the way, like life. But secondly, because, I'm human, right? Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to finish, no matter how many times I've finished them before. And I share that because I still go forward anyway, one foot in front of the other. And eventually, at the end of the race, have made it to the other side. And I think that to me it's a reminder that, again, we can all do so much more than we oftentimes think we can when we start out on a journey. To me, it's an analogy that is one of the most powerful lessons I learned from studying the civil rights movement and talking to folks there. They didn't set out walking to work every day in Montgomery because they thought they were going to pass the Civil Rights Act. They did it because it was the right thing to do. And that's the essence of this book, that we may not see, we will never see the full effect of our work, of our fight, if we achieve this purpose or not, big or small. But that's not what we're being asked to do. We're asked to just take the first step and keep going. And that's what being a marathoner has taught me, that if you just keep going one foot after the other, whether again, you're 8 months pregnant, or you're running your 30th race, or you're running your first race, if you just put one foot in front of the other along the way, knowing that you've got a tribe of support around you, and a focus and a purpose, there's no telling what you can accomplish if you just put one foot in front of the other. And when it comes to, again, taking down great empires and standing up to more powerful people than the President of the United States, or Elon Musk, or whoever else that you feel is rightly intimidating, doesn't matter. One foot in front of the other, stay focused on who you are, your purpose, your power, and you can achieve great things.
And talking about achieving great things, and you mentioned that we can all do so much more than perhaps we believe. You talk about throughout the book leaps of faith, and that resonates with me as an entrepreneur who, like you, when you left your job to run for office, for instance, I think you were taking a job if you wanted to make 75% less money, and Stephen Ross was like, you're nuts, why would you ever want to do that? I don't know many elected people that love what they do.
Very much said that. He said, I've got former governors calling me right now, telling me how they want a job with me. And I was like, is that the point?
But you took a leap of faith, and I think it's important for the audience to understand, in addition to stretching and believing that they can do so much more, that when an opportunity arises to take that leap, that they should think about taking it.
Yeah, it's scary, right, to leap into the unknown. But yet that's what being a warrior it requires of us. We're actually going to create things, do things, innovate, build new things. I think, government has a role of making that leap as easy as possible because we all benefit when small businesses grow and thrive in our state. And so that's very near and dear to my heart as well. But certainly taking that leap into the unknown is scary, but it is something that can and must be along our path as warriors and for our purpose. Because if we're really charting out a new course, fighting for a better world, trying to start a new company, as stories of entrepreneurs in my book seek out to do, you're going to be contributing to improving worlds, societies, communities that you haven't even imagined yet. So again, all that's required is for you to take that first step. To believe that once you take that first step, you're going to take another, build around your community and a path so that that path is strong and purposeful. But as I've found throughout my life, every time you think you know what you're going to do, life has a way of saying, no, how about this? Pretty much everything in this book I don't think I ever predicted would have come to pass or I would have done at the beginning of the path. Yet all that to say is with our own focus, with our own sense of self, we can start that business. We can find the support around us to have that business grow. All that's required of us is a little bit of faith in ourselves, in our voice, and our purpose, and a commitment to that. And then you work smartly and strategically to make it successful. And you're a great example of that, right? Looking from Our magazine to Vinyl Society. I mean, so much of what you've envisioned is added brick by brick to the beauty of Detroit. And because of that, we're all better, right? Because you've taken those risks, because you've taken those leaps, because you fought your purpose, we're all better for it. And that's the other part of this book. What if we all did that, right? What if every single one of us took that leap and built that community? How strong could we all be as a society? That's the world I'm fighting for, and that's why I wrote this book.
All right, so let's I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about your next leap of faith. But before we get to that, so as you outlined through the book, you get to see the lead up to you wanting to run second time for Secretary of State, and the dissatisfaction in the 2000 election, particularly seeing what happened in Florida and the pivotal person being there, the Secretary of State, and not standing up or having a backbone to do what's right. And over the past 24 years, or for the past couple decades, leading up to your race, you articulated over and over again how you saw what an important role the Secretary of State at the state level plays in the execution of fair and equitable elections. And that drove you to take the leap of faith, to leave a great job, to run. You are term limited out. You have an amazing career. You could go back to making a whole lot of money, but you are choosing to pursue a further career in public service. So talk to us about what is driving this desire to be governor of the state of Michigan, and the thought process that would be analogous to your thought process for running for Secretary of State. What's that thought process as you look to being Michigan's next governor?
Well, if you get this book in the front, you'll see it's dedicated to Aiden, my son, who's 8 years old. And in 10 years, he's going to be 18. And he's going to be deciding what he wants to do with his life. Everything we do over the next decade is going to directly impact his childhood, what he chooses to do next, and whether he chooses to call Michigan home. And I think we all have loved ones that we can think of who similarly, either now or in the future, we want them to have a good life. We want them to be happy and healthy and safe. And also we want them to stay nearby. And I think for me, I want Michigan to be the best place in the country to be a kid and to raise a kid and to call home. But we're not there yet. People are struggling. People are struggling to get access to childcare. People are struggling to be able to find a home, to be able to pay for that home, and then to be able to heat that home with rising energy costs. The cost of living from everything from food to housing to energy and everything in between is just on the rise. And people are hurting. And knowing that, as Secretary of State, I have experienced firsthand how to run state government and how to run it in a way that saves people time, that saves people money, that makes your life easier, and then gets out of the way. And that, to me, I believe, is the role of government. And whether it comes to making sure everyone in our state has access to economic prosperity, or making sure you have a warrior in that office who's gonna stand up to anyone, anytime, anywhere who would come for our rights and our freedoms. I'm ready to work with anyone across the aisle and everywhere in between to make sure every Michigander can thrive, and I'm ready to take on anyone who would stand in the way. So that's why I'm running.
There you go.
And a quick follow-up, if anyone raises your hand, we'll get a mic to you if you want to ask a question. So it's interesting because you, Gretchen, and Dana were significantly targeted by this city president during his last term. Those women from Michigan, we had a nickname for each of you. And, you know, Gretchen has taken heat now a little bit for being in the White House and negotiating with him. But, I mean, she has a fiduciary responsibility to do what's best for the state of Michigan, despite party affiliation, et cetera. And when you see that Selfridge is, you know, not going to be shuttered and we're going to keep it, and the fact have hundreds of millions of dollars in investment in new aircraft at Selfridge Air Force Base, that comes from being able to put your personal angst aside and doing what you are fiduciarily responsible for and charged for in terms of doing what's best for the state of Michigan. So having been targeted and criticized, you will have to work with this man for a year or two when you get in office. Are you prepared for that?
I'm gonna work every day to make sure he understands he lost the 2020 election. Still doesn't seem to be able to accept that yet. No, look, I mean, I can speak to how I will act as governor, and you only need to look to how I've been as Secretary of State. I mean, I have my North Star, right? Making sure the lives of Michiganders are easier, that we're saving people time, saving people money, and then standing up to anyone who would get in the way, not just of that, but of the rights and the freedoms of the people of our state. So that's exactly who I've been as Secretary of State. There we go. And that's exactly who I'll be as governor. I'm willing to work with anyone across the aisle to get things done, and we have. I've gotten legislation passed in bipartisan environments that are geared towards making our elections more accessible and more secure. And at the same time, anytime, particularly when people break the law or lie or try to spread misinformation, I will be there standing up to whoever it is to make sure that our leaders demand truth and justice and law-abiding leadership. And yes, we can work to celebrate some successes along the way, but when I look back at the last 100 days, I might take your microphone because this one's out. When you look back at the last 100 days, there we go. When you look back at the last 100 days, what I see is a lot of chaos and confusion and cruelty. I see a lot of economic strife and reckless tariffs and other decisions that have only made the cost of living go up for our residents. So to me, there's not much to celebrate in these first 100 days, and I think we have to speak the truth about that, and I always will. But you do that with an eye towards making things better. And again, being willing to work with anyone to make things better, but we also have to be willing to consistently and continuously talk about all the inadequacies of an administration that is hurting the people of Michigan.
Are there questions from the audience? Take my mic. We're all going to share one mic.
I think this is the mine's back on.
Actually, to make it easier, I'll put this mic here and everybody walk up,
Okay.
form a single line. And
You guys don't mind walking up.
And then nobody has to.
Oh, these seats are deep.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for being here tonight, and I know as many of us can attest to, we see the improvements of the DMV firsthand and just greatly appreciate everything you've done to maintain election integrity here in Michigan. My question really has to do with misinformation, and I know you allude to this in the book, you talked about it a little bit in that last question. How do we fight misinformation when everyone is listening to a different cable news network, when everyone has a different algorithm that's pushing different news, some which may be true, others not so much? How do we get at the root cause of solving that challenge and bring people together again? Thank you.
I think it begins and ends with us all being dedicated as individuals to being critical consumers of information and critical thinkers. If you can't be fooled by lies, then they don't work. And so one of the things I've learned as the state's chief election officer is that we have a responsibility in this era of misinformation to train ourselves to find out trusted sources of information and then replicate and be trusted voices ourselves with that truthful information. It is really difficult in an era of social media, which is becoming less and less a place where you can get accurate information, and algorithms instead designed to divide us and confuse us, as opposed to actually inform us. So in the absence of those traditional sources of information, we have to become the sources of information. We have to become the critical thinkers. There we go. Just keep hitting it until it works. And we have to become those voices. And in fighting misinformation around our elections, one of the things we were able to do really successfully is partner with faith leaders, community leaders, business leaders, and others to be those trusted voices. When citizens ourselves can stand up as warriors for the truth and for accuracy and reporting, that's the best way that we can be active, engaged citizens, critical consumers of information, and help get information out through this challenging ecosystem. I'll add one more thing about prosperity linked to truth, if I can. I've been really trying to think about this question a lot writ large as we think about how to knit back our divided communities, so much of which have been division has been caused by, and strife has been caused by misinformation and lies, and how do we as leaders try to overcome that and bring us back together? Part of it, and when you look at the times throughout our history, whether it's a Democrat or Republican in the White House, where we've been most prosperous as a nation, have in part been times where we've been able to recognize that we're all in this together, and we all have a responsibility to improving our communities, to improving our economy, to starting businesses, to helping to, thank you, figured it out, to help to build that more prosperous world. So the number one thing I believe, I'm good, I've got a technique now. I'm good. But the number one thing I think we all have a responsibility to do, whether it's fighting misinformation or fighting for economic prosperity, is not check out, is not give up, is find how we can contribute to spreading truthful information, or helping people start jobs, or helping small businesses grow, supporting small businesses, and not growing behemoths that try to stamp them out of our economy. All of those are other things that we can do to be a part of making this a more prosperous society. And when you look throughout history, the times when we have been most prosperous, it's when all of us as citizens are fighting together for a better world.
Next question.
Okay,
Yes.
what's your best time in the marathon?
3:30 Traverse City.
Very good. Second question, what are your thoughts about
You
rain?
just get one question. I'm sorry. Okay,
That was warm up.
no worries.
Okay. What's your thoughts about rain choice voting? Now that there's a movement to bring that to us.
Yeah. I think what is my position on ranked choice voting? So ranked choice voting is another way of selecting candidates for general elections and winners as well, where it's not winner takes all, but you rank your candidates, and then through a somewhat complex system, if your top candidate is not a winner, then your votes for your second choice candidate get added to the final totals, and it keeps going until there's a winner. I have said this pretty consistently over the last few years. One, the best election reforms, and there have been many enacted over the last several years in Michigan, like everything from citizens redistricting to no reason absentee voting to early voting, automatic voter registration, it's been a lot. And my main responsibility has been to not just to implement those changes, but to educate voters about them. And in this era of misinformation, that is not always a given, that is not always easy. We've succeeded at it, people have taken advantage of these changes, but it's not been without enormous work. So if we were to go in a direction of ranked choice voting, number one, the only way I could see us getting there is if, like all of these other changes, if citizens initiated an initiative to educate each other about it and vote it into our laws or constitution, that to me is the most effective way to bring it to the forefront, because my biggest challenge, if it is in the law, is how do I educate voters about this new way of voting to make sure everyone remains informed and engaged. And the best way to get there and ensure its effective and successful implementation, I believe, is through the initiative process. And so that's, that's essentially my position on it, because my biggest focus, were it to be in the law, although I think it's certainly shown to increase turnout and have many benefits for democracy in the cities and states where it's been in effect, is how do we make sure our citizens, all of our voters, are informed and engaged about the student process, and that would be necessary in order for it to be successful in our state.
Yeah, that's a huge concern of mine. Every time I've studied it, it's always the establishment person that wins. And, you know, most recently in Oakland, California with Barbara Lee, we even know that Lauren Taylor had the plurality in the first round. Last question, this is more future focused. Today, U.S. News and World Report put out the rankings for states. We've fallen from 42 to 43, and what led that drop was our drop in education. And we're now 45th. 45th. Mississippi is 39. So as governor, how do we attack this problem?
You're speaking my language. I think as an educator, as the daughter of 2 special education teachers in public schools, as the mom of a kid who's 8 and whose childhood is going to be affected by what we do in the next 10 years, I'm determined to make sure Michigan is one of the top 10 states in the country for good quality public education. That is my mission. That is my purpose. That is my why for running for governor. And I've been working with lots of stakeholders to develop our plan. We'll continue to do that because it's all of us working together to get to that goal. But the goal, the North Star, is clear. Top 10 public schools in the nation. See what those states, and I've been studying them as well, what they're doing right, what we're doing wrong. It's not just about funding, it's about making sure the funding is actually reaching our students, reaching our educators, supporting our schools, supporting that infrastructure. Recently, the state offered funds to increase school infrastructure, and I think they offered something like $2 billion, and I'm not getting these numbers wrong, but in reality, $70 billion is what is needed to actually upgrade the schools throughout our state. So it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take public-private partnerships. It's going to take working with the federal government as well to continue to find ways to support our schools. It's going to take transparency in how those funds are spent, accountability and whether schools and school districts are working to educate our kids. But we can get there. It's possible. Other states have done it. And just like people sat me down in 2019 and said, there's no way you can turn around the DMV, and I did it, I want to turn around our schools next, and that's my determination as our next governor. Thank you. All right.
Just really quick, I think one of the things that you really need to look at, and if you look at what these other states, and the southern states, Mississippi, Louisiana, curriculum. You've got to look at curriculum. We have to go with what's successful. And as you can see, you know, I'll talk about it. You know, I ran for school board in Troy and lost because they had a bond issue, which I said was not needed. But we got to get to phonics hard. That's the only thing I can say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Next question.
Hi, how are you? I'm Tanae Hankins. We've met on several occasions, and I spent time in a big book that you haven't mentioned, like the Bible of Secretary of States. I've done a lot of research with that. I've got a chance to say I appreciate that, and also I participated in some programs in terms of helping entrepreneurs while you were being at Wayne State. So we've crossed paths a lot. I was very happy to see the flyer because the title was head on. Head on. First person that came to mind was my mother, okay, and then my idol, Ida B. Wells, and then my mirror. So what I wanted to bring up, I haven't bought the book, I haven't read it, the outline, anything else, but do you address the issue of purposeful warriors not having the support we should have, okay, to strengthen each other, to be recognized from people like you, and so I can drop names all day long like everybody else, but we have not gotten the support because we may not be as popular as. So does your book address that? Is it something in the future you will want to talk about, like a Purposeful Warrior retreat or reunion?
I love that.
Someone in the family.
Yeah, thank you. Wonderful to see you, and beautiful words. I love that idea, and I think I will say 2 things. One, the essence of the book is the power we all have, despite what may happen around us, to be our strongest selves, that no one else gets to define who we are. No one can make us feel inferior without our consent, as Eleanor Roosevelt said. No one else, even the most powerful person in the free world, can tell us as a country, as a community, as a person, who we are and our worth. Only we have the power to define that. And so we got to retain that power and use it to further our purpose. And through that, I think, see each other. The second thing that I talk about is how, at times when I've been at a loss and haven't felt supported or known where to go for support, some of the best advice I got was look to others who are struggling too and support them. Because if you can do that, you can actually find a path towards, not towards community, towards strength. And that was one of the things that has helped me throughout my life to think, okay, who can I support, even if I'm not feeling supported, and if I can do that, then maybe find a little purpose in the struggle I'm going through.
My name is Vanessa, and I just want to make a couple statements. I was born to the working class. I'm a Detroit resident, and I voted in every election. And I don't care how small or whatever, I'm going to pick a candidate, I'm going to study candidates. In 2016, I predicted to my family who would be the President of the United States. And I was so convinced of who was going to be the President of the United States that I agreed to put a white towel over my face and snap a picture and send it to everyone. And I gave reasons why as to who would be the President of the United States and why. And of course, I was correct. Last year, I cried many days. I knew, regardless of what the media said, I knew who was going to be the President of the United States. As I stated, I was born to the working class. I worked hard all my life, and I've not been given an opportunity. I've done things right, and I haven't been given an opportunity to get to the middle class. And you hear a lot about that, but there's a lot of denial for many people of color who've tried, and we've not gotten there. There's a lot of fixing. What I'm actually asking for both parties to look at, there are a lot of problems, and there needs to be discussion amongst ordinary people. There needs to be town hall meetings with people up north and people in the inner city neighborhoods. We have some problems, and both parties are in denial. And we need to start talking about what those problems are. And I'm just totally shocked, and I've been affected by what has happened this year. A lot of opportunities are now being taken away. But in spite of those opportunities being taken away, there's a lot of fixing. And when you look at the inner city neighborhoods of Detroit, where people of color live, and the amount of money that has been poured from 2 Democratic administrations, it is a shame. It is a shame of a school system. It is a shame that we never recovered from the recession of 2008, the loss of automotive jobs, the predatory lending. And something needs to be done. Changes need to be made in the state of Michigan.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was beautiful. And I couldn't agree more. And thank you for speaking out and talking about the struggles that you're enduring. And I want to make sure that money isn't wasted, that it's going towards the people who need it, that we are rebuilding the middle class so that anyone has a path to thrive and a fair shot to be in the middle class or beyond. So thank you for sharing that, and I hope we can talk more.
So if there are no more questions, I know that we have books in the back
For Jocelyn to sign, and I think she's got a little bit of time if anyone has any one-on-one conversations they want to have on the way back to the books. We're gonna get you in the back, ma'am. Okay. Thank you. I just want to say thank you for having me. I mean, I've enjoyed the discussion. I loved the book. I'm gonna make sure everyone close to me reads it. Trey is gonna be part of this summer reading this summer to make sure he reads it. And I want to thank you all for coming and being a part of this. And we'll see you all in the back. Thank you.
We'd just like to say on behalf of the Detroit Public Library, we thank Mr. Archer Jr., we thank the secretary. We're pulling out the table right now to the secretary's left. She graciously agreed to sign, and we thank you all for coming out to this very special occasion. Thank you so much.
Wednesday.